Just a few months after, I guess that makes it 9 months after the January 6th rally, is September 16th, 2021, when the Justice for J6 rally is to occur in Washington, D.C., where the plan was for a bunch of people to take to the streets of Washington and protest the unjust captivity of political prisoners just because they happen to overrun barricades, kill about 5 people, and essentially trespass and call for the heads of Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. That's all they did. And originally a bunch of people were gonna go out there. But since then, the political hot potato of the January 6th riots has become so toxic for pretty much everybody that even the Republicans are turning against them. We're gonna tell you about that, who was originally supposed to go and who's not. And at the end of this, we're gonna get to what Donald Trump is saying. So stick around for that. Is he endorsing the event? Is he not? But first, let's get into what this event actually is. The so-called Justice for J6 rally, according to Huffington Post, organized by former Donald Trump campaign operative Matt Braynard and his group Look Ahead America, is looking back. It's meant to show support for the violent mob that overran the Capitol 8 months ago. He also, amid all this, just to let you know, that guy has said that people, since then, he's told folks not to wear Donald Trump gear because they don't. We'll get into why in a second, but he said, we requested anybody attending our events not wear any clothing or have signs supported of either Donald Trump or Biden. Like you would be supportive of Joe Biden, hilarious. Here's what Congress is doing. Not a single member of Congress has confirmed his or her attendance, even those who have been most outspoken in portraying the rioters as patriots who have been persecuted for their political beliefs. That's the New York Times reporting. And the question, how toxic has this been even for the right-wing freako system? Extremist groups like the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers appear to have backed off publicly from Saturday's event. A lot of these groups, according to Jared Holt of the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensics Lab, he says a lot of these groups seem to be pretty clear with their members that they shouldn't go to this thing on Saturday. And that by doing so, they could end up putting their members who are still facing trial for their role in January 6th into a more precarious legal situation. From everything I can tell, says Jared, that consensus has been heard and people have the intention of obeying them. So that's how people are kind of angling. Again, we'll get to Trump's comments on this in a second, but Jordan, you are attending the rally. First of all, what are you expecting? But more importantly, how does it make you feel that Jared Holt was quoted in the Huffington Post article and you were not?
Jared's a good friend of mine. Jared, actually, in preparation for me heading down there tomorrow, gave me a bunch of information and intel to help me better understand the landscape. So much love to Jared.
So what is that landscape? What are you expecting? Have these messages gotten through per his intel to the people who are going to attend? What's the lay of the land?
I think so. According to a bunch of like Telegram channels, a bunch of Proud Boys channels and leaders of different chapters, they're all dissuading their members from going. They're distancing themselves. I mean, this Matt Braynard isn't really a figure in this community. What we're talking about is specifically a lot of these hate groups and like white nationalist groups. So we might see fewer of them and mostly just kind of like the total Facebook boomer brain, like people who just believe everything they see. You'll probably just have a bunch of like a handful of lunatics. Physically though, I went down there last night around like midnight to see kind of what it looks like. And it is like a giant cage around the entire Capitol complex, like really tall. And there were Capitol police everywhere. Like I have not seen it like this in a very, very long time. I can't remember the last time I've seen it like this. Maybe immediately post January 6th, but certainly not obviously before. And in my recollection, not even like an inauguration. It's really, really locked down and intense, which I think is like maybe overkill for what is actually expected here. It gives them more of the optics of probably what the optics of what they want, which is this overreaction, this total police state aesthetic, when in reality it's probably only going to be a handful of real hangers on and just people who are true believers, and then totally outnumbered by Capitol Police and media as well.
So I know that in the wake of the January 6th riots, they had put up a bunch of fencing in DC. Has that remained up, or did they take it down eventually?
They did take it down. Midsummer, they took it down. And it was nice. It was great. I think one of the best things about living here, and especially going up there, is the ability that you can walk up to the Capitol, get a really cool picture, like right at the base of the rotunda, sit on the step. I mean, if you remember the Cori Bush protest, where she sat on the steps, the fencing had just come down shortly before that. So people were able to congregate there and have that sit-in on the steps of the Capitol. That's really cool. And I think that is a beacon of freedom, actually, that you're able to go up to right to the Capitol. And it just feels very at odds with kind of what we ultimately want to be. I don't think we are, but what we ultimately want to be, and idealistically, what we think we are. And that is, this beacon of freedom around the world. So the caging feels very weird. And again, I think it's overkill, but it came down midsummer and they just put it back up a couple of days ago.
And then, so what's the messaging that you've seen from, have you looked into the event and how people, how they're messaging to their folks, before this backlash happened? What, you kind of hinted at what kinds of people are there, but what do you think they're going to be thinking? The folks on the ground, what are they the people who aren't backing away? What would they even expect out of something like this?
I don't know, but I'm going to ask them. I've got a long list of questions. I'm really excited. We're gonna have videos over the weekend. We're gonna have some Saturday. We're gonna have some Sunday, asking them specifically, what do you think January 6th is a hoax? What's going on here? Get into some of their beliefs about Trump coming back in 2024, a wide array of political, social issues from around the country. I don't know what they actually believe. I think they think there's more people in jail or prison than there actually are. And I do think that they actually believe that they are being held because of their political beliefs, not because they broke into the Capitol and destroyed federal property. Just can't do it.
It's so nuts. So, and then just in terms of the level, I always like to look to Lindsey Graham in these situations. What would Lindsey do? Because he is at all times trying to take the most politically expedient angle for him. So in the wake of the January 6th riots, he was like, this is terrible, and we should not affiliate ourselves with that. Since then, he's kind of sidled up to this same contingent, kind of giving them outs and excuses at every turn for why they might have done something like this, and where the overreaction from the Biden political apparatus actually, they're overreacting. But if you look at what Lindsey Graham said about it, he said of the Capitol Police, they need to take a firm line, buddy. If anybody gets out of line, they need to whack them. Lindsey Graham, just someone, I wonder what Lindsey Graham thinks he sounds like when he says stuff like this. But do you think the folks that are gonna be at this rally, messaging like this from Lindsey Graham, why is he doing something like that? And what does he seek to achieve from it?
I think he's covering his tracks. A ton of Republicans were silent on January 6th, or in some cases encouraged it, made excuses for it. But it got a little too real in the immediate aftermath. So I think going into this, and then also because they didn't dissuade or discourage anyone from attending or participating in the run-up, I think a lot of them were trying or worried this could happen again and need to get out in front of it. The messaging, though, anyone gets out of line, we need to whack them, is a little alarming. And I think this is a bipartisan issue. I don't see a lot of liberals and progressives explicitly condemning the killing of Ashley Babbitt. And I think she's become a martyr on the right. And I don't think that's fair, because they obviously don't at large care about police brutality. But in that scenario, you look at that video, they had plenty of time to like tase her, apprehend her. I mean, he shot from like several feet away. Like, I don't think it's like a ludicrous claim to say, hey, maybe she shouldn't have been killed. Like, but it's turned into just a complete inverse of what we typically, the argument we typically have around police brutality. Like, we don't need members of Congress encouraging Capitol Police to assault people. Like, look, just get them off the Capitol grounds, send them home. Just do that. We don't need to encourage more police violence. And I see that play out with the Ashley Babbitt thing. And it's like, no, like, please, like, you don't need to kill her, tase her, cuff her, whatever. Don't kill her. Like, we don't need an extrajudicial police system. That's it. And I'm dismayed that we don't see more of that when some people like justify it, which I think is kind of ludicrous.
Yes, I definitely think of when I've rewatched that video and I've heard people yell gun. Those same people who yell gun in shock that a police officer would have one pointed at them, yell gun with great exuberance when a police officer points it at pretty much any other human being in any other context, or dog, or like thing they just want to shoot at. Like, gun is super happy, except in that very specific context. And they don't have the self-awareness to understand that, like, yeah, you are doing things that would fall into the category that if anyone else was doing them, you would want the police to shoot them directly in the face. I think it's hilarious to see people like Lindsey Graham take this hardline stance in favor of the cops. He's saying if anyone gets out of line, this is his, yeah, I agree with the covering the tracks. He's like, well, later he can go back and say, well, those folks were in line. Show me how out of line they were. But he does want to say, police have to do their job and I'm on the side of them. But looking at this is exactly one of the central themes that everybody should be paying attention to when it comes to Lindsey Graham, Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell, all the establishment people who are saying no. Those establishment people have been talking trash about, conveniently, when it's convenient to them, they're talking trash about every political institution that they know that Trump's rabid base needs to talk trash about and hate. Unfortunately for them, they're like the people who are now out on a limb sawing off the limb of the tree, thinking what's gonna happen? You think the tree's gonna fall? No, that's you. Like, they are undercutting these institutions at every turn just to get in on that messaging Trump train, not realizing that that train is running right through them. And this was the perfect encapsulation of that, because they were pointing that train directly at the representatives themselves. And they're very happy that this woman was shot, because otherwise it would have been their blood. I totally understand the extrajudicial killing things. It speaks more to the lack of preparedness, the lack of taking this kind of thing seriously. But I totally understand that the Secret Service, who are the last stand against someone assassinate. At that point, they're going to assassinate people, and so you shoot back into the crowd. It's more the lack of preparedness that allows this giant mob to get in the Capitol building.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.